Here's how to change the batteries on an Ecosmart Metro scooter. If your scooter looks like this, there are 4 bolts holding the deck on. 1, 2, 3, and 4. These front ones, I'm using a 4mm Allen wrench, and then on the bottom there are nuts. These have nuts on the bottom, and I'm using a 10mm wrench to hold the nut while I turn it. And then over here, there are no nuts on the bottom. This just goes into a thread. So all you got to do is unscrew those.
And then you can just lift the deck of the scooter off, and there is this little sort of soft pad that you want to just take off and use later. And then there's this spacer that sits on top of the batteries. When you put it back on, you want to make sure you don't crunch any wires with it. That comes off as well. That kind of supports the deck in the middle. And then you see your batteries, which are connected to the Razor scooter by this removable plug. So there's a little thing that you push down that activates a hook. You can see it right there. You just push it down and then pop it loose, real easy. And then they come out after that. I recommend being careful with this and keeping them in the same order so that you can see where the wires went when you take them out. And then take the little caps off of the new batteries. Link in description if you want to buy some batteries for your Razor scooter. And the wires on the original one, I believe, are soldered onto it. So if you don't feel like soldering, you can buy new batteries that come with a wiring harness like this one here. I've already replaced the batteries on this scooter, so the wires on the old batteries are quick release like that. And I can just pop them loose and move one battery at a time. You can freeze frame this to see where they go. In some cases, you'll see that a black or a red wire goes to a black terminal and a black wire goes to a red terminal. And that's normal, that's okay. But you just want to, one by one, replace the battery in the wiring harness. Because if you unplug everything all at once, it's a lot more confusing to figure out where everything went. So I just go one by one like that, keeping them in the same formation. And then when I'm done with one battery, I just remove the old battery out of the mix. And then that bottom battery is the last one. And just clamp that on there. And then as long as you do it slow and one at a time, you're not going to miswire it. And there you go. And then some of the connections feel kind of loose. So I always like to check them, like wiggle them and see which ones don't feel that tight. And then I'll just smash them down a tiny bit with pliers to give them a better grip on there. I suppose you could also solder them in place if you wanted to. And then keeping them in the same formation, just put them into the Razor Ecosmart Metro scooter. And there are little raised guide rectangles in the bottom. So you got to kind of move them around and make sure they go all the way to the bottom and fit between the lines. And those little guides hold them in place. And then you plug the plug in. At this point, I'd recommend turning the scooter on to see if the lights come on. So you don't bolt the deck back on and then have to unbolt it again. And then put this little spacer on top of it. Make sure that you're not crushing any wires with this. You got to be, just get it lined up in the proper place and make sure it's not crushing down on any wires. And then put whatever this is back on, the little cushiony cushioner, probably for sound. I would guess that's why that's on there. And then the deck just goes back on with the warning sticker towards the front. And then you put your bolts back in the front, remembering that there are nuts on the ones in the front. And then on the back, there are no nuts. Mounds versus Almond Joy situation. And then give it a full charge, and you are ready to ride your Razor scooter for another few years.